It's time for the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Scott Wooster on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Here are your breakdowns and previews with the head coach and special guests throughout the season. All brought to you by Berger Chevrolet, the official Chevy dealer of GVSU Athletics. Let's head on out to Main Street Pub in Allendale. Here's Steve Lloyd Jones.
Hi again, everybody, and welcome into our show this week. We finished up the touring shows last week, 3 of those for you, and tonight we are back live from the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. 21 years the show has been here. Coach Scott Wooster alongside.
It's kind of like, a couple road trips, go see some different venues, but it feels good to be back home, Main Street. Just a little bit more comfortable feeling, right? Like home sweet home. Yeah.
That's right. Well,
I know exactly what to order. We don't have to go down the menu.
We don't even look at the menu. That's right. That's right.
Like the little flamey thing, right? Remember we were trying to figure out some things at Condados and so. But we know here. That's easy.
21 years. The coaching show has been here at Main Street Pub, and we start that up again here tonight. Game week. You guys get to stop hitting each other in practice. You're going to have a live opponent, officials. That's going to be fun Saturday.
No question. No, and it's the transition from you go spring ball, you go fall camp, and our training camp, and that's 30 practices against one another, right? And we talk about iron sharpens iron, and that's what makes Grand Valley State going good on good, great on great, elite on elite. And now it's making that transition, getting some scout teams, getting prepped for a game week, and it's a different deal. And I think we've been talking a little bit through these road shows, Steve, about the change of the roster and a little bit younger than we're used to, and kind of felt that this week in terms of some guys making that transition, making that adjustment. It's a different deal, and felt a little bit today. So excited to get out in front of a crowd because there's quite a few guys. It's the first time they've been out in front of that crowd. So,
absolutely. Well, that's going to be coming up Saturday, 1 o'clock. Grand Valley will kick off their season, their 54th season of Laker football, coming up Saturday at 1. So here tonight, here's what's ahead. I'm going to talk about how fall practice has gone, some surprises by way of good things that have developed. Coach with a couple of scholarships he's given out. He'll talk about that in our next segment. School starting up. How are the guys handling that? So we'll get into that stuff. Tonight you're going to hear from offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Ian Shoemaker. He will stop by. And then starting quarterback Andrew Schuster as well. So we're going to hear kind of offensive heavy tonight.
The shoe and shoe show, right? Like it's I think we can make some T-shirts. We got marketing over here. Maybe they can go to work on that. Shoe and shoe. You're going to get this thing going tonight.
That's right. We'll give you a taste of the opponent for this weekend. The first time ever, Grand Valley is playing Lincoln out of Pennsylvania. This is a CIAA school, the Lincoln Lions, and they will be coming in here with the 1 o'clock kick. Plus, we'll get the key to the win. What does Grand Valley have to do to get a victory there on Saturday? It's all ahead as the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Scott Wooster gets started after this, right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Good.
Okay, good. Levels are good.
Thanks for joining us tonight, live from the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Steve Lloyd-Jones, head coach Scott Wooster alongside. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report each week, Thursday night, right here on the network. This segment brought to you in part by Noara Brothers Home Store, bringing you top-name brands at low prices, and by Earhart Construction, the official construction company of the Grand Valley Sports Network. So the Lakers, Coach, it's game week. Love hearing that. Love saying it. You get to play somebody, which we'll talk about later in the show. But fall camp, obviously winding down. You're getting your two deep established. You're getting guys, final looks at them as camp ends. How has that gone? Just kind of give us a flavor since last week on the show.
Yeah, just making that, like we talked about in the open, just making that transition from the practices where we talked about splitting the roster into Tier 1, Tier 2, through training camp, and now you get to game week and we're splitting that roster to essentially our two deep, right? The guys that are going to dress on Saturday, and then scout teams. So a little bit different shake, a little bit different schedule too. You go camp, you go 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, take Sundays off, and get into game week, and Monday's our player day off. A lot of guys come in, watch the tape, do some of that stuff, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is really the bulk of our work. And we continue that undulating load we talked about during camp, but now Tuesday, a really intense day. Go more of a run-through tempo. Don't open it up on Wednesday and then come back on Thursday. Tomorrow, we'll have a meeting and then do a little bench control, watch a little tape, and then, just start mentally preparing for the game. And particularly with a 1 o'clock game, we were 48 hours out 49 hours out when Thursday's practice is over. So some scheduling differences, right? The roster split's a little bit different. So, yeah, just that transition. There's some moving parts there. There's some things that change.
Yeah, well, speaking of change, over the last few years at least, Grand Valley hasn't played an end of August type of game. I mean, you've played one after Labor Day, that Thursday or whatever. So how big of a change is that for you preparing for that?
Well, and I think it's a relatively new phenomenon. Last year was the first year we could do it in Division II. So Division II, you play 11 games straight. You have to play 10 for playoff 10 games for playoff purposes, but most of the time you would play 11 straight, right into the playoffs. Last year they opened up the scheduling to go a week 0, so essentially you can play 11 games in those 12 weeks.
Yeah.
But now you take a bye at some point, right? We didn't have to do it last year, but just we've talked about how difficult and challenging scheduling is,
right.
With the GLIAC trying to find 4 non-conference games. So week 0 is going to become, I think, a pretty standard thing around here because it creates more opportunities, right?
Gotcha.
A lot of teams might only have week 1 or 2 open, and then they go to their conference schedule, and on week 0, very few conference games, if any, are played. So, everyone's on the table, and that's the impetus of it. But, the drawback, the huge positive is you're getting back and you're playing football sooner, right?
Yeah.
The drawback is we live in West Michigan, and summer times are pretty nice, right? And so it's 1 week that we report back to camp a little earlier, right? But love the fact that students just got on campus. It's the first week of school.
How's that going?
Tremendous energy. I mean, 19,000 undergrads running around the Valley campus.
Right.
And, guys on these e-bikes and scooters, man, like that's driving us crazy. But outside of that, but no, there's tremendous energy on campus.
Yeah.
Move in last week, and everywhere you look, there's people. So that part's great. And, worked out well this year that Monday, like we talked about, that day off of a game week, that was the first day of classes. So,
right.
A little less
bit,
stress there.
yeah,
but
yeah.
you could, again, like I said, you could tell a little bit Thursday. We didn't have quite the correct focus. I think some guys are a little tight, some guys are a little loose today. So, that all those things are at play. A little bit different schedule. Classes are starting. The energy of the campus. We go from our guys are doing voluntary workouts, and there's nobody on campus too. You snap your fingers, and then, like I said, there's close to 20,000 people running around.
Yeah.
Things change very quickly, right, with the school start.
So I'm curious, as a coach, if you see guys, let's say as a group, that are not focused like you want, does it vary from team to team how you approach that, or are you going to peel paint every time you see that?
No, and I think it does. And we've talked about the leadership that's on this team, right? And that's part of it, is the self-correction of come Saturday, if we're losing that focus in a drive, well, that leadership has to come from the players, right, from within. And felt that, we, particularly on the offensive side of the football today, there was a couple periods that probably weren't, like I said, a little loose, a little tight, whatever that was, but finished extremely strong. So felt like the leadership took control and really made sure guys snapped it back in, locked it back in, and finished. And that's what happens in a football game too, right? You get off to a great start and kind of going through one of those lulls, right? Or start slow, and you got to have those guys that be able to snap it back in, lock it back in, and get it rolling.
Yeah, you need those leaders in particular at those adversity points, don't you?
Exactly.
When things are going great, everybody's happy and chirping and excited. So one of the fun things that we get to talk about are behind the scenes stuff, kind of like for you this week, where you get a chance to get a couple of scholarships to guys. Not everybody knows that and how that can happen. So walk us through that. How did that go?
And I think you see sometimes some of these programs with Twitter and social media and everything else, and I think some things, the brotherhood piece of it, right? Like some things that go on in the practice field, like it's special for us in the locker room, and so had the opportunity, got in a position where a couple guys have just been phenomenal. One in particular came to us a year ago. I think it just that acclimation getting going, and didn't have a great camp. I think as the season went on, he was on scout team and did better and better. And then you saw it starting to happen in the winter time and some of the workouts and things. And then spring ball. By the end of spring ball, he really started to shine. Comes back in training camp and just you just saw the growth and the progression every single day. And it was at a position, offensive line, where you're always looking for depth numbers. And by the middle of camp, we're starting to say, well, this guy might not just be a two-deep guy. He's a guy that could compete, right, and can rotate in there and compete with, Weave and Curtis and some of those guys. So Andy Hartman has just been a really, really cool story, and he's been on an awesome trajectory. And, so the cool part about Division II, the partial scholarship model, is you can get those guys going and help them out with tuition, some of the bills and things like that. And then the other guy, C.J. Jones, came to us this winter. Again, his backstory, pretty incredible. How his journey to get to Grand Valley State, and had some class things that kind of got onto it too late, where he couldn't switch classes and practice and stuff. But got out there this summer, and then had again another guy that had a great training camp and just continued to shine and show up and be productive, and the work ethic. So a couple guys that just earned the right, and there's the highs and the lows of this position, right? And in one day I had the highest of highs, being able to do that, and the lowest of lows. Shortly after that, the worst part of the job. So it's the ups and downs, the peaks and the valleys.
Well, one of the things I love about that, when you see often programs and scholarships get given out, is the reaction of the guys for the player.
Right.
And so tell us more about that, kind of how guys treated them.
Yeah, no, and that's, the we all we got deal. And we talk about this term, mudita, right, the joy in somebody else's success. And, as an offensive lineman, that's where we find our joy, is somebody else's success. And we talk about it a lot in terms of, that's what men do, because right now there's a spotlight on you, and you're a college football player, and Schuster's going to get up here in a few minutes and go throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns and do all these things, and everyone's going to be talking about him, right? But then you get to your 40s, and it changes a little bit, where that spotlight might not be on you, and your joy is derived through your kid's success, your wife's success, your business's success. And to see that reaction, right, to see that response to those guys, where there's pure joy in somebody else's success. And that's what we all we got is. Like, if you wanted to say what's the picture of it, how's that defined, it was those moments just like that.
Yeah, no, that's special for them, and I imagine, friends and family and everything getting in on it. So anything else, any other fun surprises or things that stood out of camp as you look back now?
Yeah, so I went through and I watched every single clip of camp. You watch it practice by practice. But sometimes when you sit down and just watch rep after rep, some themes emerge, and there was a couple of guys that just absolutely stood out on the tape as I was watching in that regard, and a couple of guys that we've already talked a ton about, right? Kellen Reed and Kamani Potts and some of these guys, but one guy in particular on the defensive side of the football just showed up over and over, and Ryer Snow. He's a redshirt freshman linebacker right down the road. He's from West Catholic. And, he had a really good year last year on scout team and gave a great look and had a good spring ball. But just one of those guys that, it wasn't maybe right at the point of attack all the time, but just the hustle, we talk about swarm to the football, changing speeds when the ball declares and two stripes and violent arms. And you just saw that over and over and over from him. Like every single rep he was showing up around the football. So those are the kind of things that, especially from a young player, really, really, really cool to see.
Yeah, very nice. Well, the Lakers Saturday at 1, you get the kickoff against Lincoln University out of Pennsylvania, and that's going to be the first game of the season for Grand Valley. Again, 1 o'clock with the kick on Saturday. Well, a quick word from you, Coach. Your offensive coordinator coming up next. Year 2 for him. And you and I kind of talking on the side of the field the other day about how big that is. A second year. Yeah. Everybody's used to this system now.
Yeah, and there was, tried to keep some continuity with Coach Shoemaker's hire a year ago, and it was pretty seamless. But just that second year, being able to, and we'll talk about it when Schuster gets up here as well, but now when they're throwing routes, in the wintertime and when they're getting together, they know the routes, they know the coaching points, right? Like they can get into the minutia and the detail of it. So from January on, it's not necessarily just the spring practices, the training camp, it's all those in-between times too. Yeah. Where in year 2 now, what Coach Shoemaker has brought has just been phenomenal, right? And we've talked about it before. I think we talked about it a little bit last year. He's got tremendous experience at the Division II level, FCS level, FBS level. Coached the Walter Payton Award winner, Harlan Hill finalist. Led the, one of the highest scoring offenses in D2, FCS and FBS, and has been a head coach. So something I can lean on. He's been in this chair before. So just been incredible resource to have. And again, in year 2, just to see the growth of what we're doing on offense is that part's exciting.
So that's going to be coming up in our next segment. Stay with us. We'll continue with the GVSU Football Weekly Report right here, brought to you by Berger Chevrolet on the Grand Valley Sports Network. We're back in a moment. The Main Street Pub here in Allendale. We continue with our show here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Steve Lloyd-Jones. And as mentioned, the assistant coach interview for you right now. It's the perspective presented by Fast Signs of Grand Rapids. It's offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach Ian Shoemaker. Joining me, Coach. Great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so year 2, we were just talking about that with head coach Scott Wooster, and what a big advantage that is. Just you don't have to introduce yourself, your terminology, your concepts with the guys. They know all that. Talk about what a plus it is for what you're trying to do.
Well, I think it's, after being through this process a couple times at a couple different schools and going into year 2 is always a huge advantage. The opportunity for those guys to, understand what the expectations are, what the standards are, the read progressions to the, ability to change their routes and things like that. And, we've really seen that growth through the winter, in the spring ball, and then now again in fall camp. So it's been a real fun process, and you hope that those go right out on Saturday. Those strides continue right on Saturday.
Does it take longer if you have, let's say, a system that everybody's familiar with? Does it take longer to get used to that, if that's new, or if players coming in are new, trying to adjust to it? What takes longer to gel?
Well, I think one of the interesting things is guys that come in that you recruit in or are in the system a couple years, even if they haven't had a ton of playing experience, a lot of times their habits are now your habits. Okay. Versus maybe not saying you have to break somebody's habits, but those habits are different. The way they operated, the way they went through practice, the way they looked at a game plan and things like that. And now we're to that point where most of the guys here in the system now are in that second year or been through a couple of different installs. And we always talk about kind of that third or fourth install being when the light clicks on, okay, for some of those guys, and we're now through that multiple installations, hopefully that'll show up again.
Yeah, well, what it looks like just from practice and word of mouth, a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism that you have, and the offensive line, good talent, not as much experience maybe per se, but you're gelling there with it. How would you assess that an overall of the offense at this point?
Well, I think, like I said, we had some great seniors and are really going to miss a lot of those guys up front and at quarterback and, different positions. But, these guys have really taken to, the teaching and really taken to this opportunity for them. And like I said, they're really gelling well, across the board from the front to the tight ends to, what we're doing in the run game to the pass game. And, I'm excited to let those guys let loose a little bit. We have, like I said, some great speed and some guys that are playing at a really high level right now in the receiving room. And, like I said, we're looking forward to kind of seeing what that looks like when we get out there on Saturday.
Yeah, it seems like great depth, wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, new names. We're going to hear from one of them in just a bit here. But, talk about that position group, what you're seeing from these guys and just their development. Because, again, as we say, talent, but haven't had the chance to really be able to play much yet.
Yeah, high talented guys, we're looking at, guys that were in that class, that freshman class last year and have been through here. And like I said, they only have one way of doing it. And it's the way that I've installed it, the way I've talked about it, the way we look at the game. And they're completely bought in, and then Brady Drogosh comes in from Cincinnati and has jumped on board and really bought into what we're doing from an operation standpoint and a decision-making standpoint. And, I'm really, looking forward to kind of seeing how we can mesh that group and use all of their talents, at different times.
Yeah, well, as we talk with the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach Ian Shoemaker here on the show tonight, Grand Valley is going to play Lincoln University, the Lions, 1 o'clock kickoff Saturday here in Allendale. Yeah, they're getting used to it. They're trying to adjust to the position. What do you say, Ian, to guys who haven't had much game experience? I'm not talking game plan. I mean, like mindset. Is there a don't try to do too much? Is there just slow it down, watch the play clock, listen to us? Can you tell us, how do you prepare guys for it?
Well, I think having a consistent way that they think about each play and each concept coming in hopefully normalizes their thinking, you know what I mean? And making it, less stressful, less things to think about to where they can play fast and let their natural talent take over. Yeah. That's the hope, and I think what we've put in, over the years is, is a way for them to think about football and a way to think about each play, where they can kind of, minimize that overthinking that can possibly happen. We have a thought process every play. We talk about this looping, from, a soft focus, seeing a lot, to, a very narrow focus when it's time to throw, and, just teaching those mental skills, hopefully, continue to make them better and more comfortable over time.
Tell us about quarterbacks that you have, the personalities involved. What are these guys like?
Well, they, like I said, they're three peas in a pod right now. The top three guys in the group, they're fairly inseparable. You see them, in the locker room. You see them out hanging out together. Talk to them like, oh, what were you guys doing? Oh, we watched movies last night, or we went out together. So that's fun to see. Is that Mudita, that coach talks about, that they really are enjoying each other and what each other brings to the table. Schuster might be a little bit, of a quiet leader and just kind of, that silent assassin. You know what I mean? Goes about his business and knows right where to go and slices and dices and things like that. And you get some of the other guys that are more, maybe athletic and run around and can really do some magic things with the ball in their feet. And so I think it's a nice mesh. But what's fun to see is just the personality of the guys and how they've come together and really enjoyed working with each other and helping each other hopefully perform at their best.
Well, the schedule as it plays out, you've got a couple of bye weeks coming up after 3 games. Does that? I know you're focused on one opponent. Is there a plan in your mind with something like that, or you just deal with it when you get there?
No, I think you definitely got to look forward. Obviously, this weekend is the most important thing. Saturday is the most important thing to us, and performing well and being able to evaluate that performance and then hopefully learn from it. Again, like I said, year 1 to year 2, but game 1 to game 2. Especially with a new guy behind center, that's going to be hopefully some of our biggest growth again. And we're definitely looking at each week, and then when that bye week comes, hopefully get healthy, whatever dings and issues that we have, and put ourselves in a position to kind of reestablish those good habits.
Without getting into too much competitive advantage, what's an area you want to see the offense get better in? Is there anything?
Definitely. I mean, there's always things that we want to improve on, and first and foremost, we want to be physical up front and be able to run the ball effectively and take advantage of our ability to throw the ball downfield off of play action and things like that. And then what we can do with kind of our drop back game in the middle of those things, right? Between running the ball, being great in play action and downfield throwing, and then being able to steal yards in the quick game and in our base drop back game without having to lean on it. And I think that's what I'm really excited to see is how we can steal yards and early downs in that kind of quick game area, maybe a little more than we used last year.
Lincoln, the opponent this week, it's tough because you don't necessarily know a lot to prepare for. What's that like as a coach?
Well, I think one of the things for us, fortunate for us, is that the head coach is a defensive guy, so we feel like we may have a little better leg up than what we do on the defensive side. Those guys are dealing with a new offensive coordinator and some new bodies and some new names on the roster. So we feel like, that structure should hold true. If it doesn't, we have to, bob and weave and adjust. But, we feel like we have maybe a little bit more of an advantage over the defensive staff with Coach Lewis and those guys. But, for us, it's, the nameless, faceless opponent. Let's go out and just execute our jobs. Yeah. Understand that most of the things that we have in our game plan should be successful if we make the right decision under center, and we can adjust to what they're going to bring some things that are going to be things that we're not prepared for, and maybe names and bodies on the roster that we didn't know much about, and we're going to have to adjust to that on the fly, and that's a great part of the learning process.
That's right. Execute at a high level as you get into year 2 here for you. Coach, thanks for stopping by. Good to talk with you.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Ian Shoemaker. Up. Yeah, Ian Shoemaker, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach for Grand Valley there, and your assistant coach interviews GVSU segment. Coming up next, our player segment featuring quarterback Andrew Schuster. That's straight ahead as the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Scott Wooster continues after this, right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Continue with the show live from the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Steve Lloyd-Jones, head coach Scott Wooster, and joined by redshirt freshman Andrew Schuster, as we'll talk with him in just a moment. Coach, to interview him, the guest player segment for you, brought to you in part by Radco Apparel. Be proud to show off your brand, and by Flow Sports, where you can watch the GVSU Lakers all season long. So Coach is here, and take it away.
Part 2 of the Shoe and Shoe Show, right?
Yep.
So you got Coach Shoemaker now, Andrew Schuster. So just got a couple questions. We were talking just earlier, Steve and I, about classes starting. Off to a good start?
Yeah. Started classes on Monday. Got a few classes downtown, a few in the Valley campus now, as it should be. So yeah, a lot of students are on campus. Energy is high, and yeah, so starting off strong.
Awesome. And speaking of school, what do you want to do when you grow up? What's the study plan, majoring in, all those type of things?
Yeah, so we have a lot of engineers in my family, but I want to go the business route. So right now I'm in business general right now, and then through these core business classes throughout the second year, getting into the business school, kind of just weighing my options. I'm thinking finance, accounting, and then maybe try to double major in a lower business course too.
Gotcha. Other people's money. Right?
Yeah.
That's how you make a lot of money. Other people's money. I like it. I like it. So we'll work backwards a little bit. From the college experience, first game week for you, redshirt freshman, but you got a little taste of it last year. Got some action against Wayne State. Started in a spectacular way, right, statistically. Yeah. So we'll get that fixed here come Saturday. But just making that transition now, We talked about it as you heard here in the open, just going from training camp, spring ball training camp, and now into a game week. Feeling pretty comfortable now that I think sometimes we're in training camp and you got access to every single call, and now what happens?
Yeah,
Can you
plan
talk to the listening audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, throughout spring ball, summer and fall camp, just trying to install the whole offense, going through all the installs, try to get everything in and get the players familiar with every play. And then, once it gets to game week, you watch film, you watch tape on the opponent, and then you kind of dwindle that down to like a certain game plan. So, game week is different. It's a shrink. You're kind of working on, plays that you've drawn up and stuff. So I think that's kind of mastering those plays and just, being able to go on the fly and, so I think we got a good game plan and,
Ready to go execute it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So, got to ask you this question because, and kind of go back to the start of the football piece of it, use the term, I've described you as kind of a gym rat, right? The basketball analogy of always being around, whether that's throwing, getting guys together, throwing on your own, watching tape. You're in the Hosford Football Center probably more than some of our full-time coaches. So there's a love for the game. There's a passion for the game, obviously. Where did that start? What was the start for football for Andrew Schuster?
Yeah, so, I've been playing football my whole life, probably, third, fourth grade. I've always played up with my brother growing up, especially. I started off, I wasn't really a quarterback. I was more of a linebacker, because my brother was a quarterback. So, I started at a young age, and then kind of throughout middle school, my brothers were quarterbacks in high school, so I kind of picked up quarterback during middle school and stuff, and, fell in love with it, and then throughout high school, kind of just seeing my brothers, good role models for me. So kind of them helping me out, and then just, with quarterback training and stuff, just trying to get better every day. And and then finished high school out strong.
What was the first team that you played for? Do you remember back to that?
It would have been the Ducks. It was a Sterling Football League. So I played up 2 years with my brother, probably starting third grade, fourth grade. So that was a good experience. Obviously got to be tough when you're the little guy in the field. But my dad was a coach and stuff. So it was a fun time for sure.
What number did you wear?
Ooh, I don't even remember, honestly. I was a different number probably every year.
Yeah.
I was probably just trying to find. I might have been 6, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I might have been 6.
Got the single digit. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit, because this is, I think this is a really interesting deal. And I got to know the Schuster family a few years back when recruiting Tommy, right? And fell in love with the Schuster family there because, and I'll never forget this, that state championship game, I think he went 13 for 13 and didn't miss, and putting the ball in the chin every time. So just a little bit more about that, the impact of having two older brothers, but then two older brothers that played this position, right? Like it's a really cool story, and all played college football. Mm-hmm. We were just talking at the table that mom and dad might have to split a few times this fall with your brother at Lawrence Tech and Tommy just finishing up in North Dakota and Michigan State. So just maybe a little of the impact that two older brothers, but you all play the same position. Yep. Pretty unique.
Yeah, I think that was huge. I mean, obviously, like I said, I was a linebacker growing up. I was also a big baseball guy. And then just kind of middle school, kind of seeing, my brother Tommy, he was in high school during that time. I think I just love for the position through middle school, and then when I got into high school, it was kind of I was the young guy in the school, and then Ryan was also kind of an older guy in the school, so he kind of helped me, develop my game, get an understanding for the offense there. And then, when I was older in high school, they were in college playing ball. So, just I think them being great role models for me, it's helped me out a lot. They were very successful throughout high school and in college. So I think just being able to ask those questions about, like, how is it done, helping me out with, big games and stuff, just like the little things. So I think it's been really important for me. I'm very thankful to have great role models as brothers.
Yeah. No, and Coach Shu and the staff, we talked about this, just your development, the last year and a half, last 2 years has been remarkable, but the stage was set a little bit with brothers. And then I want to give him probably more of a shout out than a question, but your high school experience, Coach Merchant, Coach Dentreiter, who you mentioned, right? Like just the training. So you got the impact of the brothers, and then Coach Merchant running a high school program like a college program. This wasn't too foreign to you when you got here, right?
Yeah, no, not at all.
And obviously, Coach Dentreiter and Coach Shoemaker kind of seamlessly, just so maybe a little bit of the impact that some of those role models your coaches had.
Yeah, great Coach Merchant, he was great. He's one of the best it gets, in Michigan high school football. He helped me a lot. He was a counselor in the school as well, so not even just the football aspect, but schooling. And then Coach Dentreiter, he's been phenomenal for all of us. He's done a lot for us, and I think just being just a quarterback coach, but just understanding of the game was huge for us, especially like he would just through meetings constantly being hard on us, be like coaching us toughly, and I think that helped us out a lot, especially making the transition from high school to college. It made it way smoother. So yeah, they've had a huge impact on us three, and especially the transition from high school on to college.
Awesome. No, put it's a really solid foundation. Put yourself in an awesome position, and we talk a lot about discipline equals freedom, and you're a guy that walks that every single day, right? The discipline. So let's go have some fun. Let's be free on Saturday afternoon, right? So, Andrew Schuster, come on out to Lubbers Stadium and let this era begin. So, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Excited.
Yeah, our thanks there to Andrew as he came on to the show tonight. Going to make his first start Saturday there against Lincoln. The Lions, the opponent for Grand Valley at 1 o'clock kick. We'll be back after this, talk more about Lincoln with you as Scott Wooster will break that down for us. It's the GVSU Football Weekly Report presented by Berger Chevrolet, the exclusive Chevy dealer of GVSU Athletics. Back after this on the Grand Valley Sports Network. And we are back with head coach Scott Wooster. Steve Lloyd-Jones with you. Great to have you along. Show brought to you by Berger Chevrolet. We're here inside the Main Street Pub. Year 21 of the Coaches Show here at the Main Street Pub in Allendale. Well, the upcoming opponent preview for you, Grand Valley, coming up 1 o'clock, the kickoff against Lincoln University, the Lions. If that's a team you have not heard much about before, well, the Lakers have never played them prior to Saturday. Again, 1 o'clock, the kick. As Scott, we're going to talk about this team, brought to you in part by Matrix Basement Finishing. So here's some interesting info here about Lincoln University, again, out of Pennsylvania. This school is part of the CIAA conference. They were established way back in 1854, so a long time ago. An HBCU school, the first college degree granting HBCU, by the way. About 2,000 students. And they claim Justice Thurgood Marshall as an alum from the school. So all thanks to Joe with his crack research prior to the show. But yeah, some interesting things. And we joke, but honestly, you don't know a lot about the football team.
No, and that's the exciting part of it. Like we talked about week 0, talked about non-conference, and we had a couple of contracts, Colorado School of Mines, couple years, and then Pueblo for quite a few years. We played lacrosse last year, but played them in 21. So there was some familiarity with a couple of these teams we've played non-conference the last couple of years. And so to play somebody that we had never played before and don't know a lot about, that there is an excitement. You talk about maybe a little bit like the playoffs and some of those things, preparing for that. So I think the interesting thing, in D2, there's 3 Lincolns, right? We played Lincoln, California a couple of years ago, Missouri, and now the East Coast out here in Pennsylvania. But Coach Shoemaker alluded to it when you had him on, just in terms of the unfamiliarity, and then you couple that with a new offensive coordinator, right? You couple that with transfer portal and some of the other things in terms of how fluid rosters are. So I think this is not just necessarily a Lincoln thing, but it's kind of a college football thing too, right? From a personnel standpoint, early in the year, don't know exactly, who you're playing yet, right? Some of those depth charts and everything else because of the fluidity in college football. But you talk about the crack research by Joe there. We've had some people digging over the last couple of weeks. We got one of our analysts, Jake Bafinga, does a phenomenal job digging in and finding all the not just the fun facts but the facts, man. Right? Of this offensive coordinator and who these guys are. We brought another analyst on this year and so those guys have been digging for the past couple of weeks to get as much information as we possibly can.
So it is, a lot about what you do and the degree to how well you execute it on Saturday, no question. They look at it that way too. How have you seen the 2 deep solidify, maybe as camp's gone along, where we are now? Like where have you seen that finally come
for us, right? No, and I think you said it perfect. The faceless opponent part of it, of you can really hone in on you, right? Let's go be us. Let's be a great version of us. But to that point, I think one of the really, really exciting things is, you're always worried about depth and creating depth. And I think when you talk about it 2 deep, I've said this before, I despise the word starter, right? Because I think that, the mental depth chart, the depth chart, everyone, who's going out there first? Well, how many guys are going to make an impact in the game, right? And as you've watched us play over the last couple of years, particularly on the defensive line, rotate a lot of guys, linebacker. But I think this football team, we can do that at a lot of different positions. Coach Shoemaker talked about wide receiver. Got a couple guys playing at an extremely high level, but we've got a lot of guys playing at a very high level. And that part's exciting, where we can, continue to solidify maybe who's the guy that's going to be the best when it means the most and make those plays, but we've got a lot of guys that can make those plays. And you look at our defensive line, defensive tackle in particular, we've got 4 starters, right? And I was talking to Coach Caruth earlier today that, who's had the best week of preparation, and if they've all maybe flip a coin this week, right? Yeah. And defensive ends coming into that, linebacker we talked about a couple weeks ago, that, and we're really seeing that where we probably could play 6, 7, 8 linebackers and not miss a beat, you know, and starting to create a little depth in the secondary. Offensive line, we talked about Andy Hartman earlier today, you know, and James Kent's coming back, getting healthy. So maybe, you know, playing 7, 8, 9 guys up front. And talked about the quarterback position, how much they complement each other, right? They all have this really special, unique, super skill that they bring. So rotating quarterbacks, and we've had great success with that. But, you know, you talk about tailback, running back. We've got 3 starting running backs.
Yeah, but you need those guys.
No question.
You need them all.
And another guy that's really come on, a tight end. Again, you know, Evan Furtney and Harry Unger and those guys complement each other so well, and got some move Drake Deshetsky over there, and Luke Stanton, Colin Buchanan. So, yeah, I think across the board, the competition coming out of training camp, you know, I made this comment of these competitive, who's going to be the guy, who's going to be the starter, but, you know, at some point you kind of complete each other, you complement each other. And if we got 22 guys on offense, 25 guys on offense playing at a championship level, well, they're going to play, right? And same thing on defense. If we got 22, 23, 24 guys, well, they're going to play. And again, you know, trying to play a 15-game season, that matters, right? And staying fresh and staying on people and wearing people down and dictating the terms as we talk about it, imposing our will. Guys can play so hard, right? Every play 4 to 6 seconds, because they know if they empty the tank, the next guy's coming in, and he's going to play 3-4 hard plays, and then I get to come back in, and that really creates some synergy. And I'm starting to feel that and see that. Particularly, there's a couple of position groups, but across the board as well.
Are season openers? They're kind of, it's their own animal. I mean, it's like a phenomenon unto themselves, the opener of the season, or are they just like another game?
No, Steve. You know, you look at it like basketball. I was talking to Coach Williams the other day, and they're going to have 2 scrimmages and exhibition games, and by the time they open, they've played another team 6 or 7 times, right?
Yeah.
Our soccer team just had an exhibition match with our game with Findlay. You don't do that in football, right? We don't have a scrimmage. We don't have any of those opportunities. It's all, you know, your roster. It's all inter-squad scrimmages and everything else, and then flip the switch and go, right? And as you watched last week, I don't know if you got a chance Saturday. We were off Saturday making that transition from training camp to game week, and got a chance to watch a little college ball, week 0 in FBS, the game over in Ireland, right? A little bit of a drunken game there, I guess, in Ireland, but could barely see the lines. Rain's coming down, and the fumbles, right? And then the late game, Stanford playing Hawaii, and the penalties, right? 5-yard penalties, 15-yard penalties, and, you know, some guys probably just so ready to play against somebody else, and maybe a little too much pent-up aggression taken out at the wrong time. So you hit it on the head. It's a different animal, and particularly playing week 0. So we've talked about that this week. I'm going to reiterate it tomorrow in our meeting. That you know, a lot of times week 0 is who doesn't beat themselves, right? Who doesn't lose the game?
Well, we'll talk about it one final time when we come back. Be right back after this. the biggest factor that'll determine this week's game. The Lakers in the season opener against Lincoln.
I think we just had it the previous segment, right? Like the week 0, the opener. I think that is a huge key to this game. Is the controlled aggression. It's a violent game, want to get after it, but been hitting each other and just want to unleash it, but execute your assignment while you're doing that, right? And so the mistakes, talked about the turnovers in one of those early games last week, the penalties, like those are the things I think will be the key to the game, right? Is playing clean football, not turning it over, the ball obsession piece of it. And then the ability to line up, right? Those 5-yard penalties, those 15-yard penalties, the pre and post snap stuff. So playing clean, we want to be aggressive. Yeah, we want to be physical, but do that within the scheme.
That's right. Self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, and that's
so important.
You see it so in early games. There's no question.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Our thanks to Chad Cashman tonight for all of his great help back in the studio for our show this week as the Lakers here, game week. And a lot of fun to bring you the show here tonight. That'll do it for us. A big thank you to offensive coordinator Ian Shoemaker and quarterback Andrew Schuster stopping by as well. For head coach Scott Wooster, I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones. Thanks for listening tonight. Remember, Saturday, 1 o'clock, the kickoff will be on the air at 11:30 on the network. I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones. Thanks for listening on the Grand Valley Sports Network. So long, everybody.
That's a fast hour.
Nice job, guys.
Thank you, Chad. Talk to you Saturday, man.